Hello there. Um, I'm talking today. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the State of the Union speech that Donald Trump gave not too long ago, a couple days ago it is. And one of the things that he said was like a premonition of the upcoming election, a foreshadowing of what might be their Republican battle cry coming in. And that was he was talking about how he believes that, or he says that America will never be a socialist country, he said. And it got a great big applause from the Republican side of the aisle. It got lots of applause from them because, that seems to be what the Republicans fear the most in the world today is socialism. And I suppose that what they're talking about, they were talking prior to that of Venezuela down in South America and their ally Cuba, which insists that they are a communist country. And so they will never have any socialism in America, which I think is a bunch of baloney. It's just, if you know anything about, I've done videos about this before, about which is more natural, capitalism or socialism or communism and all that. What I believe is that this is a mixed economy in the United States. In other words, we have a lot of capitalism and we have a lot of socialism. I mean, when they say it should never be a socialist country, I think he means completely socialist country, and it never will be. I don't, at least not in my lifetime, not for at least 100 years, I can tell you. But socialism exists right now in the United States of America. And one of the things I think we ought to clear up probably is the definition of socialism. Sometimes, Wittgenstein talks about this all the time. The definitions of words are used as a game, in many cases. And so socialism, I looked it up in this dictionary right here, which let me show you the dictionary. It's this one here. It's a great big fat dictionary that I found. And in the definition of socialism, it says is the theory or system of the ownership of operation and the means of production and the distribution by society or the community rather than by private individuals, with all members of the society or the community sharing in the work and in the products. Now, that's an old definition. It still goes about products and production and so forth, instead of what's primarily involved in socialism in America, which is services. That it's a 19th century theory there a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that isn't what socialism is. That is what socialism is. But you look at the United States of America. There's a lot of socialist programs that exist and have existed for a long time, and in most first world countries, they have a lot of socialist programs, and they've been very good for the countries. The countries that are the most high standard of living in the world all have a certain amount of socialist types of distribution of things, such as Japan and Germany and all these other first world countries. And in the United States, I've been listening to this for years, and I hear people always telling me on the Republican side that nothing can be done better by the government than can be done by private industry. That's what they say. And at this time, they're trying to dismantle many of the private industries that are, like, for example, school. They're trying to privatize this public school system. And, in truth, there's always been a certain amount of private schools that are available, and they even have these satellite programs and so forth, and the homeschooling as well. And the government gives money, which, by the way, would be socialism if it does that, to people to help them go to these satellite schools And they don't do any better than the public schools as a general rule. I argue against the movement toward private schools because one of the problems is that it's a death spiral for the public schools. And many of the people who care the most about their children's education are going to want to send their kids to the private schools, of course. If you have the money and the means to augment the government funds, you could send them to a better private school and so forth, which means that there's less money going to the public schools, which means the public schools continue to get worse. I think a lot of the effort to bring down the public school system in America is an attack against what is the teachers' unions. The public sector unions are really the only remnants of any powerful unions left in America anymore. And of course, the Republicans don't like unions because it makes them pay their workers more money. And they don't want to pay workers any money. And this is what it's all about. You look at some of these satellite schools in our state anyway, you don't have to have a full-time teacher and you can pay them less money. So you get what you pay for is my point. But let's talk more about socialism. They continue to say that there's nothing that the government can do so that private industry can do better. And I disagree with that. Just take a look at some of the things that the government does. For one thing, the U.S. military is a socialist system. It's anybody who wants to argue that, take a look at it. Every cent that's paid to the sergeants and the corporals and the privates and the majors and the generals and everybody comes directly from the society, a taxation upon the general society, and they protect all of the community and all of the society. So it's a socialist program, and it's nothing but. And it's the greatest military. You want to argue against this? The government can't do anything right, then you're saying that the U.S. military is lousy. No, the U.S. military is the greatest military I think that has ever existed in the world. Not that I'm in love with the military, but who can beat it? So they're doing a great job in socialism. This is the other thing, the Veterans Administration. Once we go off to one of our wars and some guy gets his leg blown off or, he gets his brain rattled, then he comes home and he has to go to the Veterans Administration to administer medicine and psychological treatment and so forth. And that's socialism. That's paid for through government funds. Now, if you don't want the Veterans Administration, you want to privatize the Veterans Administration, figure out a way to do that. There's no way to do that. Because no matter what, if you took a private company, and they do sometimes, they go to private hospitals at times if they need a specialist, the money comes from the taxes that are taken out of your paycheck every day and taken out of the corporate taxes and all the other forms of taxation. The thing that no Republican ever wants to pay. I personally don't want to pay taxes either. I don't want to pay my electric bill. I don't want to pay for food. I want everything to be free, but that's not how things work. There is some things that the government has to do that they can only do and more efficiently than a private individual can do, and will do efficiently more than a private individual will do. So this is a bunch of baloney that they're handing out all the time. Oh, we don't want any socialism. Take a look. This is what's really coming under attack as well. Social Security, which has the word social in it, which is there's two forms of it. There's a retirement Social Security for when you're like 65 years old. Then you get a check every month in the mail distributed or into your bank account. And that comes out of your paycheck or everybody else's paycheck and has been for years. That's, in other words, just like it says, the community, the society or the community rather than private individuals. You can pay, yes, as a private individual, you could take out a 401k as you're working. And that would be a private individual. But let's just talk about Social Security. That's not private. That's public community, comes out of the community and paid for by the government taxes and your payroll. And there's a lot of people in the Republican Party, and they're not fooling about this because, listen to what they're saying. They're going to get rid of Social Security. Medicaid. Medicaid is for poor people who can't afford to go to the hospital. So better than 50% of the children born in America today are born under Medicaid. What's the solution to that? They don't want to pay for Medicaid. They want these kids, if we go according to what the Republicans and Donald Trump want, these kids need to stay home and have their children and hope they live. That's what they're shooting for. Let's say Medicare. That's always a big stink. The ironic thing about it is, even during his speech, Donald Trump was talking about he wants to put $150 million over 10 years into childhood cancer. The federal government research into childhood cancer. We can beat this, he says. Which is like, all right, that's socialism there, Donnie Trump. You said there's no socialism in America? $150 million of federal funds being done in research is socialism. It's the community paying for it. The community receives the benefit. It's also, I think, a little bit silly to, it's childhood cancer, like as if children get a different kind of cancer than everybody else. I don't know. I'm sure I have hundreds of doctors watching this. Maybe do children have different kinds of cancer than grown-ups? Then he talks about, he's going to work on the cost of medicine in the United States, which is so much higher than every other, first world country. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to tell private companies that they can only charge so much for their medicine. That's socialism. See, these people, I'm not sure where they're coming from with all this. What I think it is, though, and I'm pretty sure that what they're trying to do is they're trying to destroy the Medicare, the Social Security, the aid to dependent children, the Section 8 housing, if you go down to your local community, they have a bunch of snow plows that they own. No more of those, We all pay for those. We all get to ride on the roads when they plow. But that's socialism. Can't have that anymore. I mean, I don't understand exactly what they're really trying to say here, except I think they might be serious. I mean, there's either two possibilities. One possibility is that they have a bunch of dummies that listen to them and don't understand how things work, and they just like the sound of that. Because what they're afraid of really is a communist dictatorship where you have to register your children and put them into a holding camp when they're 2 years old, and they get indoctrinated and so forth, and something like that, and we're going to stamp 666 on our hands and everything else, and then the government will take away your guns, and it'll make you all just work for free, and you have to go like little robots. No, that's not going to happen in the United States. But you got to understand that it's possible, that what they're doing there is they're trying to scare their Republican cohorts into never voting for Democrats by automatically labeling Democrats as communists. And they're, I'm not voting for that. But what they're really going to do is they're going to get rid of your Social Security. They're going to get rid of public schools. They're going to get rid of, they might get rid of the post office very soon. Well, anyway, that's my take on that.